aggressively casual.
I don't know why. It just does. I love it. Let's see. Are we good? We're good. Oh, look, the first time. The first time everything just worked. It's a fucking miracle.
Don't jinx it.
Oh, welcome everybody to Aggressively Casual, episode 17. We are here. We missed y'all. It's good to see you. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks in the gaming world. And we got some things we want to talk about tonight, as always. Some games coming out this week and some things that came out last week that have intrigued us. But beyond that, I'm Freebird. With me over to my internet left is Cheeks. If you're new here, hi. This is Senshudo. This is Aggressively Casual. And we do this every couple of weeks. And it's a good time.
We talk about games every couple of weeks.
It's true. We talk about games. We talk about opinions. We share opinions. We do stuff and things and whatnot. But Cheeks, how are you?
Yeah, good. Surviving.
What you been playing?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Of course, the game goes live that we've been betaing this week, so that's great. But I've also been playing this little kind of rogue-like hack and slash Diablo. Think Diablo, but more rogue-like with pixelated graphics, so to speak, of Towers of Babel: Survivors of Chaos. I, for whatever reason, find this game stupidly fun, if stupidly grindy.
Yep. It's a good time. It's a good time. I wish it was multiplayer, or at least co-op.
Yeah, if it was co-op, it'd be great.
I wish it was co-op. I think it'd be a really good co-op, because there's another game like that, similar kind of hacky slashy roguelite style that is co-op. That I can't remember the name of it right now, and it'll come to me at the dumbest time during the show. I'll just shout it out, I'm sure.
Right. Well, I don't think Kyborg is co-op.
No, but there's another one that's kind of.
I mean, it's kind of a fantasy version of Dead Zone Rogue.
Yeah.
For lack of a better.
Yeah. That would track with me. That would track.
I mean, that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
You get your gear. Although in this case, you keep your gear between levels. You just have to restart all the levels for skilling and things.
So it's kind of like, wow, my brain is not here.
What's that one?
But it's kind of like playing like a new game plus every time. You keep your armor and your skills, but you've reset levels. Is that the idea?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, interesting. So
and skills are random. Your skill choices are randomly generated when you level up. That sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. Beyond that, have you been playing anything else?
A little Division 2 with the new season, the new campaign. Finished that with your help last night. Yesterday.
Yes. Yeah. Yesterday afternoon. Yeah.
So yeah.
Time is a flat circle.
Other than that, just gearing up for the Dune launch.
Oh man! So if you notice the stream title is Dune Awakens, the Division 2 DLC, and more, because I now that we're 3 or 4 days away from this game actually launching, I think we can talk a little bit about the game.
Yeah.
At least a little bit about kind of what we see the game turning into. But I figure our next show we can dedicate a portion to our first opinions and
absolutely
first impressions, and opinions and whatnot.
Right.
But I think that tonight, as a pre-up to that, I'd like to talk about just the game in general, kind of what's on offer, and kind of where it is now and where we see it possibly going, especially now that today, literally hours before we started the show tonight, they launched the private server announcement thing and how that works.
Somewhat divisive.
Which is interesting.
So, well, and sorry. There's a lot of things reading through the entire 11-page thread on Steam, because I'm that guy. There's a lot of people that don't know how the game works. Because they haven't been in the beta or kept up with all of the information that's been put out. Right. I don't expect you to, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But if you're going to talk about something like what you're talking about, you should probably actually know what you're talking about.
That's ideal. Yeah.
And in this case, they're talking about how the servers work and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's not how they work at all.
Right.
And they've talked about how these work. Um,
But the thing of it is, in that post, they talk about how the servers are going to work.
Right.
And
so yeah, it's a thing.
And the comments
so,
yeah.
So a lot of the comments are dumb, but what it boils down to is this. The private server will give you a private instance of the Haga Basin, the whole thing, all of the most major PvE areas.
Yep.
Now people are complaining, but you have to remember that every Haga Basin in the game is limited to 40 players anyway.
Right.
So it's not that big of a deal. Now,
exactly.
Where they kind of have a slight sort of point, I guess, is your private server farm, which is hosted by one of three companies, Nitrado, Gportal, or one that I'm blanking on right now. I can't remember the name. I'd never heard of it.
Right.
They have that you share with all the servers in that particular farm, the two community areas, Harco and Arakeen, and the Deep Desert PvP.
Okay.
That's it. None of these servers, and here's the thing, servers do not share worlds.
Right.
So each server is its own contained world, much like back in the day with EverQuest, where one server has their economy, the other server has their economy. It's all none of that shit is shared.
Right.
So, and you can't transfer. So, but you can jump from server to server within that farm, just like you can on the public servers.
Right.
So, whether it's going to split the player base or not, And you have three choices, at least with Gportal. You can do the standard server, which is just like the game now. You got PvP in Haga Basin. There's a couple of PvP areas that are smaller.
Yeah.
Then you get sandstorms, taxes, and things like that. There's also one where the whole thing is there's a server farm where it is open PvP everywhere.
Oh no,
it is all open, and I am all out.
Yeah. Nope.
That just has grief written all over it.
Yep.
And then there's one that Gportal in particular are calling the role play server, which has sandstorms turned off, PvP turned off, but see now when I say PvP turned off, that's everywhere except the Deep Desert. Okay. The Deep Desert is still PvP enabled.
Okay.
So, and then they have taxes.
Well, that's because the Deep Desert technically isn't on your server.
Right, it's not on your server. It's on a different server, which is what a lot of people are missing. And they're like, well, if you just turn PvP off, no, you can't.
No,
what you're turning off is maybe 3 tiny little areas where nobody ever goes.
Right.
So
the risk of PvP in those areas is slim to none.
Tiny.
And if you happen to get caught like I did at one point in the open beta in that area and somebody's griefing you, it's just because they want to be there and they have nothing better to do with their time.
Right.
But
because their little e-peen gets a little stiffy when they grief.
Right, exactly. So
I said it. I said what I said.
So
bring it.
So I'm of two minds about this in general, about the game in general. I think the way they're doing the servers is smart. I think the way they're handling the private servers is probably the only way they could really handle the private servers, unless they just unless they just said if you want to buy a private server, you lose out on the PvP. But the problem is if you do that, you cut a giant chunk of the end game out of the game.
Right. Well,
because
well, if they said you just don't have PvP, but here's the whole thing.
Right, but we're talking
which is what I think people think they're doing.
I think so too.
But that's not what's happening.
But that's not on Funcom for once. That's on people not being able to read what is in front of them and interpret what is in front of them. I read it and Funcom was very clear. Their position is very clear, and they spell everything out in that post. Everything is spelled out for you. If you don't understand what's going on, I can't help you.
Right. Well, and people are like, all the comments, well, so much for the MMO element. This game was never an MMO.
Well,
The MMO access, as when they what you consider truly massively multiplayer, it is a multiplayer game. It is
Yes.
not massive.
yes,
Sorry,
but
it ain't.
Funcom originally tried to sell this game as a
Yes, but
survival MMO.
my point is, I wasn't there yet. They backed off of that really early.
Fair.
They
okay.
backed off of that pure MMO really, really early.
Fair.
And so it hasn't been for, I mean, it's been in development for what, 3-4 years now? We've known about it for
I would say
2 or
we've
3
known
at
about
least.
it for 2 or 3. I think it's been 3 to 5 years.
So yeah, so you're talking 3 to 5 years. We've known about it for 2 years at least.
Yeah.
And very shortly after that, when it was first touted, it was like MMO, blah 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 blah. But they quickly backed off of that to this kind of Destiny style MMO.
Yeah.
Where you have shared areas that are instanced because they can only handle so many people at once.
Yeah.
It's not like WoW, where I'm going to throw every player in this zone and it's just going to kill my servers.
Right. Well,
I'm looking at you, Burning Crusade release.
Right. I have an article that I'm writing currently, and you've done some contributions to it as well. It's going to come out, I believe, Wednesday. So the day before early access goes live, if everything kind of comes together for it, right? But basically, the bigger problem with the game for me is that Funcom, and you've said this, and I was hesitant on it until very recently. But you've said that Funcom doesn't know what type of game they actually want to create.
Right.
And again, until very recently, I was pretty hesitant to agree with you. But now my concerns are, can they bridge PvE and PvP and figure out a way to make them coalesce for the most part? It's never going to be perfect in this game, or are they going to end up pissing off one crowd or the other? And they're
going to end up pissing off both.
Right, that's the thing. I think that they don't know at this point. At least they could not tell you honestly whether or not they wanted to create a PvP game or a PvE game. And I say this because, and look, we're not going to get sponsored for this game at this point, so I'm just going to come out and say this, right? It ain't happening. Oh, your cam froze. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, cool. There's your camera froze. My thing is that
not froze on my end. Weird.
It may have just been the stream together thing.
Are you having a stroke?
Yes, clearly. My thing is that the decisions that have been made from the open beta until now, right? Mm-hmm. It turned me from the opinion of, this is a PvE game that has PvP to this is a PvP game that has PvE.
Right. I agree.
The interesting thing is, right? And I talk about this in the article, but I want to kind of read this out a little bit, right? Is that Funcom's vision is a persistent online world that blends survival mechanics and PvE with large-scale PvP, but it struggles to reconcile its inspirations. The environmental storytelling of abandoned ecology labs and the methodical base building systems, those appeal to our PvE sensibilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, like the deep desert and the ever-shifting spice blooms and all that, fighting over those cater to PvP guilds and people who just enjoy PvP in general. The systems often work at cross purposes. So there is no way in this game to just do one or the other.
I'm not convinced that's true. and this is me talking based on some of the information that we've seen lately.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely convinced that that's true.
Well-
However, I think it's going to be real difficult in the end game.
Yeah, because the thing is like PvE players, you can't like you can access the top gear without having to go into PvP zones. But PvP focused guilds, if all you want to do is PvP, you have to engage in PvE grinding for schematics and research points and all
Right.
that.
Oh yeah,
Right?
well that's the thing. That's the thing. All they're going to end up doing is pissing off bow people. Now you know how you fix that? You know how you fix that?
Hmm.
Deep Desert PvP occasionally drops schematics. Done.
Yep. Oh yeah. But the thing
Problem solved.
But at that point though, right? You have to commit to letting people go to the deep desert way earlier than you do now.
No, you don't, because people already go to the deep desert. I have seen posts from people who were like, within 2 hours, I will be in the deep desert.
Okay. All right. I
So-
have not. So
I don't necessarily agree, because if now, for most of us, the aggressively casual part, it'll take longer than 2 hours.
yeah.
Based on the open beta, I expect to be across the gap, which is the first hurdle, if you will,
Yeah.
in that same 2 hours or less time frame.
I would agree. Like the thing that I think is interesting is that if you look at data, right? Funcom has said this is a PvE game with PvP elements at the end game, right? So in an essence, it's New World,
Yeah. And that works so well for New World.
right? Because 80% of the end game content is tied to the deep desert.
Here's the thing. Faction warfare always boils down to one thing. Who has the most bodies? Every game so far that I've played, that has tried to implement faction warfare,
Yeah.
it simply boils down to who has the most bodies.
Right.
But anyway, we could talk about this ad infinitum, and we probably will. So let's move on.
Yeah, let's move
I mean,
on.
and I'm not trying to drop the subject, because I'll talk about this forever, but we might as well wait for a few days till it's live and we can talk about everything.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I wanted to have this as a precursor before the game goes live so that in 2 weeks, you and I can look back on this and go,
Now,
well,
with that being said, keep in mind that we will be playing this game, so they're doing something right.
right. Right.
So I want to preface all of this bullshit that we tend to spout, because we do. That's what we do. That's what we're here for. But at the same time, we're still planning to play a lot of this game. So they're doing things right. It's just until it goes live, we can't really talk about a lot of that.
Right. And that's the other thing is the, I will say this, the strange relaxation of the NDA.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's
But
weird.
the problem, it's also stupid and unenforceable, and absolutely
right.
I mean, I'm simply not going to police everything I have to say over the next
Correct.
2 weeks of oh wait, did I account? No, it's not happening.
We tried that during our open beta live stream and failed. So it just it's not look, we are going to try our best to not talk about those things we're not supposed to talk about. But at the same time, we're humans.
Right.
And it happens.
I'm
and
not
we're
even
friends.
sure though. Here's the thing. I'm not even sure once it goes live what we're not supposed to talk about.
Right. Well, I think it's like the changes, right? So like X was different.
That's just it. I'm like, well, what's
beta.
in this that's not live?
Well, right, but what I'm saying is,
I have no intention of talking about that crap anyway, because it doesn't matter.
Oh, good. Hold on one second.
What matters is what is.
Chat. Not only is it against terms of service to buy and sell viewers on Twitch, it's just scummy. Don't do it.
Oh wow, you got that one before I even saw it.
Don't come into my chat and do that. Don't come in. No, just don't. Anyways,
You got that one before I ever saw it. It didn't even pop up on my chat.
Off my soapbox. So the other thing I want to talk about is the
Beat
Division
on,
2.
peasant.
Here's the Division 2. because oh my god, I put more hours in Division 2 in the past week than I've put in the game since Warlords came
Agreed.
out.
Totally.
That DLC story was
It's good.
worth
The
the $15
story's good.
alone.
Yeah, I mean, some kind of there. Obviously, because you have a short, it's not a long campaign.
Yeah, no.
Honestly, I could have dealt with it being about 3 or 4 missions longer.
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
Because some of the plot lines kind of get resolved quickly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we saw with the last season of Andor. Because if you recall, Andor was originally was like a 5-season arc.
Yep.
And then they decided to go with the 2-season arc. So a lot of things got condensed. And this feels kind of the same way, as like they condensed a lot because it seems like they got to a certain point and they're like, oh crap, we've only got 3 missions left.
Right.
We got to wrap this shit up.
But the weird thing with that though, in terms of this game, is like they could have added a mission or two and been okay. Now that's a lot of work. But hell, you could have sent us back to an environment we were already in. You do it plenty in the game already.
Right.
So I would have been okay with reusing something from Warlords, for example. Oh no, something broke out.
You got to jump back to DC and grab this thing.
Right. Well, or there's a bit in there, and I can say this is not really a spoiler. They're saying they're shipping stuff out of state. Right. When they say that, we go track that and find it and shut it down. Granted,
at the exact time that happened, I was like, "You mean like to DC?"
Right, but I see that's where I think it's coming. I think that's what the seasons are built. What the seasons building.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining. I'm not saying it sucked. I'm absolutely not. There was a few plot lines I was like, "Wait, what happened?"
Oh okay. Yeah.
I think I missed something. That sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah, for $15. The storyline is well worth it, and it's the Division 2. The moment-to-moment gameplay, the moment-to-moment shooting in that game is top notch.
The thing about that game, yes, the end game can get grindy as hell. I've said that for 7 years, right? The end game can get really grindy, but the way that they've allowed you to just go into end game content and farm for the gear that you want is and actually attain it. For example, right? Last night, I logged on and I wanted to get a specific assault rifle. I wanted to get a specific exotic assault rifle, right? I went into this mode called Countdown, where it's basically the end game content farm, right? End game loot farm, right? I went into Countdown. I did 2 matches of Countdown, and I got what I wanted. I didn't have to spend all night grinding and doing this and going over here and running over. That felt so good. It respects your time and gives you agency.
Right.
Because then, if I get a version that I don't like, I can go buy a schematic and re-roll the damn thing.
Right.
It's so nice, and the fact that with this game, there's not really. I mean, there is. But there's no need to play a meta build if you don't want to. You can just find what you want to do and
my
how
build
you
is
want to
definitely
play,
not meta.
and generally it works. I've got it. Remind me to show you my build.
Yeah.
I think you would really like this build I'm running once you get the crit damage and crit chance built up on the gear itself.
Right.
It's insane. It just melts shit. But okay, anyways, regardless. So we had also a couple of topics we wanted to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
Things that we oh, good Lord. 1 second. Sorry. I was trying to pull up the message you sent me earlier, and, Facebook did that encrypted message shit thing again.
Well, I got it right here.
So there are 3 topics, and it's kind of 2.5 topics. I think the first 2 kind of roll into each other a little bit.
The first 2 roll into each other, and yeah.
And then the last one is kind of on an island on its own, but that's okay. That's okay. I will let you lead off and figure out which one you want to talk about first.
Well, let's talk about technology for a bit. Let's talk about the hardware. I got a new video card this week, so my machine is officially what I would call back in the lower end of the top of the heap,
What?
or the top of the middle of the heap. I went
So
from
what?
a 2080 Super
Yep.
to a 5060 Ti, which when you pair that with what I'm now running, which is a Ryzen 9 9900X with 128 gig of RAM on a Mag X870E Tomahawk MSI board. So it's a pretty decent machine now. It's pretty beefy. It renders video really well actually now,
Yeah.
because of all the which is why I went, because for
Well,
gaming,
right.
32 gig you're good. But I do, because this is also my studio, my recording studio and my video studio.
Right.
More is better.
Right. And
But
I know
but
for a while you were considering like switching and like taking your old rig and making it your studio rig and whatnot. But that would have been more
right.
fucking hassle than it was worth for you, really.
Yeah. Well, and the fact is, parts of that rig started to die.
Yeah.
So, uh, when that's what prompted this. What, about 2 months ago, maybe, or maybe not even that long.
Yeah, month and a half, 2 months. It's been
Month and
about,
a
yeah.
half ago, I ended up replacing motherboard, CPU, RAM, added a couple more SSDs. The only thing in this now that is still what I would call a legacies part, and there are two old spin drives that I'm still using,
Yeah.
but they don't have anything important on them.
Right.
But everything else is SSD. It's all,
Yeah.
so it's now all SSD. But the thing that made the last piece was that video card, which I did over the weekend. Um, the first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. It it was so quiet when I turned it on, and I'm so used to that old 2080 Super, the fans cranking up. I literally had to reach down, reach under, and make sure the fans were spinning on the video card, because it didn't sound like it came on.
Right.
I was like, is this thing on?" Now when you
Right.
benchmark this thing out versus the 2080 Super, now the hardest thing to do, as actually I've noticed, is to find true comparisons between, because you can find 5060 Ti comparisons and 2080 Super comparisons, but they're going to be 8 gig cards, both of
Right.
them.
Right.
But I didn't get the 8 gig card. I got the 16 gig card. So the
Well,
benchmarks don't match up.
and that's
Um,
and that's the reason I pushed you off of the 4060 you were looking at, because the 4060 you were looking at was an 8 gig card, and I was like, just don't. I'm like, it may be fine now, but in a year or 2 years, you're gonna be buying another card, and it's just not worth saving the hundred and some dollars you saved to
right.
have
And
to buy
don't get
another
me wrong.
card in a year or 2 years.
End of the day, obviously that made sense, right?
Yeah. Wait,
Because I went ahead and got the
something I said
TI.
makes sense. It's a miracle, chat, and
Mark
he
it
admitted
down.
it. He admitted
I
it on
know, right?
stream.
Right. Mark it down. Mark this date. Note. Um, the difference was, though, I was like, okay, that's a kind of a chunk more, but as I said, I do, okay, go on, ham boy.
Nah,
Go on, you little ham. You're gonna get my stream banned.
it's all right.
Um,
Easy.
well, Kim used to get TikToks taken down all the time because he would walk through,
Oh yeah,
so they take them down because they're idiots. But anyway,
yes,
I was
it's
like,
okay.
yeah, and
I
then
told
then
you.
of course we did talk about the creep, and I looked a little bit. I was like, well, what's the 5070 or the 5080? But
No, yeah, no,
that was
just no.
stupid
Yeah,
differences in price,
yeah,
right?
right. Right.
We're not talking about like $100 different. The difference here was about $100,
right,
and uh, so now we're talking about a $500 to $600 difference.
right.
Um,
Versus and
Now,
it just again for what you use the rig for. There's no
right,
fucking way you should ever spend $1,000 on a graphics card. I'm sorry,
right.
that's stupid.
I think it's, unless you're doing something really high end, you don't need it. Because here's the thing: once you pass 120 frames per second, you really can't tell.
Right,
Your eyes can't see it.
right,
But at the same time, I'm gaming in 1080p still. I don't have 2K and 4K monitors.
right.
So on the bright side, I now get 1080p as good as it could possibly look,
It's true. True.
and it's really
And you have
pretty.
those nice new monitors that you bought that look really
Right, I've got
look
the
really
32
nice too.
inch,
Yeah.
32 inch full 1080p monitors. Um, so I think part of the two, that 2080 was well used. I'm actually its second owner.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but to be fair, it was still running everything I threw at it
Right.
at pretty high settings. I wasn't having to trim. I usually had to trim down from ultra to high. I
Yeah.
rarely had to trim anything down to medium.
Yeah.
And on 1080p, you can't tell the huge difference between
No.
ultra
No.
and high.
Like on mine, on my rig, like I'm running a fucking ultra wide monitor, right?
Mhm.
I'm at 3560 by 1440, right? So
I
like,
should ask what you're compensating for.
so
Um,
well, if you have to ask, but but you son of a bitch, it
uh,
it
I'm compensating for the fact that I have 16 terabytes of hard drive space on my machine.
oh yeah, there's that. But so for me, it's I run a 3080 in my rig, and I love my graphics card, but I'm starting to see where it's getting a little long in the tooth, and that's the reason I switched to a 2 PC setup for streams.
Right.
Because I spent $300 on my streaming PC, big fucking deal, or I could have spent another $1,000 on a graphics card.
Right. Well, that's just it. To upgrade that thing, you're looking at $1,000 plus.
And I'm just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Our friend Jeff has the same problem.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's running that. I think he's running a very similar card.
Yeah.
And because when we were talking about my upgrade, we were looking. I was like, yeah, in order for you to upgrade that thing, you're looking at $1,000 to $1,600.
But it's not even that. Like, well, didn't he build a new rig fairly recently too?
Yeah, recent-ish.
Yeah, really, like within the last year or so, right?
Yeah.
So like it would make no sense for him to upgrade all of it beyond the graphics card. So it's stupid for him to them go and spend $1,000.
Tell us, Jeff, when did you build your machine last? Because we can't remember.
Fair.
I see you.
I see you. I see you, Hef. Senior Hef. I see you. But so like, the thing that I wanted to talk about with this tonight is the way, especially NVIDIA, because NVIDIA's in a lot of shit right now. The way that NVIDIA has sold and marketed the 50 series cards.
Sure. Well, and you see what I was getting at earlier was benchmarks' first real world performance.
Yeah.
On paper, the 2080 Super still does things better than the 5060.
Yeah.
On paper.
Right.
But when I drop in and I go into these same games that we've played, and I was like, okay, that's different.
Yeah.
I mean,
dude,
Destiny is a great example.
Red shot you sent me.
Right. The RDO is just, well, I mean, RDO, I'm sorry. RDO's just maybe the prettiest game ever released. Ever.
Yeah. Red Dead 2
so Red Dead about a year
ago.
Yeah. But when I logged into Destiny, it finally started looking like some of the screenshots and videos that I've seen.
Right.
And the biggest difference that I saw though is not necessarily the textures, it's the dynamic lighting and the shading and the shaders. That's the biggest difference that I saw in a lot of things. Yeah. So it makes everything when you get the dynamic lighting and the shading going, it makes those really cool textures pop out.
Right.
And they look really good.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then the nice thing is, in a game like Destiny or a game like Red Dead, you can stop and look at those things.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that NVIDIA got caught doing a few years ago, when they were first talking about ray tracing, was they were talking about using it in fucking Battlefield. When I'm sorry, when the fuck am I playing a Battlefield game? Am I stopping and going, wow, that texture on that car is so realistic? Okay.
To be fair, I may have done that in Battlefront 2 a few times. And then promptly died. So I was like, holy crap, that's pretty. Oh, I'm dead.
Oh, I'm dead. Damn it.
Yeah.
Fine, for everybody who's not Cheeks.
Right, but for the most part, you're right. When you're playing a Call of Duty or a Battlefront or something that's a fast-paced online PvP shooter,
right?
You're not generally stopping to count the roses, right?
Right. Yeah. Generally, no.
So yeah, that's where the thing is lost, and it Cyberpunk would look way better, and that was surprising.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, that's all about the lighting and the way that Cyberpunk handles its graphics, right?
Right.
That's what that's all about, because Cyberpunk is a GPU game, not a CPU game.
And the other point that I want to make about that is gaming, despite what some may think, gaming is what pushes the technology forward.
Oh, absolutely.
You can run Word on a calculator.
Yep.
You don't need that much processing power to run something like Office.
Right.
So gaming is what's pushing this technology forward.
Yep.
I still say, however, I still stand by this, that if they would stop with this crap, okay, CPUs, they're fast, right?
Yeah.
But the motherboards still can't keep up with that throughput.
Right.
They're better, but the bus throughput is still not there.
Right.
Bring the bus throughput up to match the CPU throughput, and you are going to see exponential returns on that.
I wonder if that has to do with a cost thing. I wonder if
sure.
I would assume that it is a cost saving to the consumer measure.
If you can spend all that money to keep putting those tiny little processors closer and closer together on that itty bitty chip, spend some of that money to make the hoses bigger.
I agree with you. 100% agree with you.
You know, but the problem is,
the thing,
when you tell somebody my motherboard has blah 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 bus speed, their eyes roll back in their head.
Oh yeah.
If I tell you I'm running a 12-core 4.8 gigahertz processor, that's a number that the non-computer person can kind of wrap their brain around. Of number go up good.
Yeah, right. Well, and the other thing about that is that gaming handhelds like the Steam Deck and the one that I have, the Lenovo Legion Go, right? The past few years, like those have really pushed the boundary of like what is possible when it comes to gaming, when it comes to technology. It's insane. If you would have told me 4 years ago that we would have a better performance than the Switch in a handheld and I could play all my computer games on it, I'd have been like, yeah, but it has to cost like $1,000 and be, you know, super fucking shit battery life, and it has to be really fucking heavy too, right? No.
Right.
Apparently not. I mean, my Lenovo Legion Go cost me, which is most of my streaming PC, but I do play games on it occasionally. It cost me $300.
You know what my mobile game platform is for both PC and everything else?
Your iPad.
My iPad Pro.
Yep.
Because that thing is badass.
Oh, yeah.
And my previous iPad Pro was also my gaming platform.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong. I'd like to have something like the Steam Deck or the Asus Rogue or what you have or whatever.
Right, but you also run because you can. Your internet is good enough where you can run like Steam Link and Xbox game.
Yeah, I played Destiny on it.
Pass Cloud. Yeah,
I played Destiny 2 on it.
I remember when
we played First Ascendant on it.
Yeah. When you were laid up, when after your surgery,
for the foot surgery.
Yeah. It was great. It was funny. I could not believe that you were on your iPad playing that.
Right.
It was the connection,
the controller, and we're off.
Yeah, the connection was that good. The connection was really that good, and that
now
was
the
really...
iPad I have is bigger.
What are you
saying about
what were you saying about compensating?
I was trying to get to the joke before you did.
You usually get there before I do.
Hey, boom! Nice, damn. Ooh, shots fired.
Happy Pride Month, everybody.
I need some salve for that burn. Now I'm distracted. But marketing gets out of hand like everything else. It does all that stuff. But what does that mean in the real world, right?
Right.
Just when it comes to video cards, just show me the pretty. But show me the pretty in a practical manner.
Right, exactly.
Show me Cyberpunk running at max settings. But tell me what you're actually building. You're at what rig you're actually using to do it. Yeah. Because a lot of times companies are like, "Look at this! Wow, holy crap, that is amazing!"
It's on $10,000 rig.
Yeah, it's on a $10,000 rig.
It's on a rig that like Linus Tech Tips or like Gamers Nexus would have, and we're like, "Great, thanks. I'm never gonna have that."
Right. So maybe this set our expectations a little lower. I would love to see somebody put out real world expectations.
Right. Exactly. So. I agree. So the other one you wanted to talk about that I'm gonna transition this over to here is and I'm gonna read this verbatim and then I want to kind of go with why you wanted to talk about this. It's, you ever notice when people are talking about games?
Oh, you skipped one.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
What did I skip?
Game design, vision versus reality.
Oh, sorry.
I stick
I
to the
thought that
vision
was
at the expense of fun.
okay. I thought that was the same thing as the other. Never mind. I can read. It's fine. Media literacy, chat. Media
But these
literacy.
kind of go hand in hand, so it's good.
Yeah. So you ever notice people are talking about games, they often cite features and missing mechanics in games as reasons they're not going to buy the game.
Yeah.
But they never actually tell you what those missing features or mechanics are.
Right? It's one of those things that annoys me. And what it boils down to is simple. I don't want to buy this game, so don't fucking buy it.
Right? Well,
If it's not for you, it's not for you. But you don't. My point is, you don't need a reason. If you like, how many times have you like show me a game and I went,
yep.
I've never. But if you're gonna say, hey, I don't want this game because it's missing features, well,
Right.
tell me what those features are.
If you're gonna complain like that, you got to do what I did in my Elden Ring Night Rain article, right? One, list what your fucking problems are. As in,
Right.
hey, look, the PC port has problems. Hey, guess what? The game kind of is getting a pass because it's FromSoft. Hey,
Right.
but then here's the thing. You get to do what nobody does, and you have to say, I'm not just gonna bitch about it. Here are solutions. And
Well,
give
well,
both
even if you're going to just bitch about it, but at least tell me what you're actually bitching about. It doesn't have a mini map. It doesn't have not enough fast travel. And I'm
Right.
pulling shit out of my ass, by the way, because nobody ever says what they are.
right.
And I've seen it with Dune on even public. They're like, well, this is missing a bunch of shit. I'm just not going to buy it. And somebody was like, well, what are you missing? 14 pages later, Mr. Man never bothers to come back and say,
of
well,
course
this
not.
is what I'm missing.
Of course not. No,
Because
that-
you just want to kvetch about it. You just want to bitch, and I kind of get that. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to buy it, that's fine. By the
Right.
way, not everyone has to buy every single game that
It's
comes
fine.
out. Lord knows I don't.
It's
So
fine.
if it's not for you, you don't have to make up some excuse that it's missing features. Just say it's not for me. I'm not going to buy it. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
Done.
Yep.
There's games that I brought to you guys that's like, hey, this looks like it's a lot of fun. And I get,
It's not hard. It's not hard to just be like, hey,
They make a
thing
pill
not
for
for
that.
me. It's not hard to say things not for me. But the problem is, again, when we've
come
talked
on.
about this, I'm just ignoring you. The problem is, right, and we've talked about this, is that game developers and publishers have baked in FOMO to their games.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they want you to feel, again, like you're missing out on something if you don't
Right.
buy and play their fucking game. Every
Right.
single fucking one. And it drives me batty. Why? Again, if I have said this for years and I'm going to say it again. If you just make and sell a quality video game,
Right.
the
If you make it,
masses
they
will give
buy
you
it.
money and they will keep playing the game. Just
Right.
make and sell a quality video game. It's not
Right.
hard. It really isn't. Do you want to know
Apparently it
why I
is.
know? But you want to know why I know it's not hard? One of the best games of 2024 was BattleBit Remastered, and it was made by a
Right.
team of 5 people.
I saw. Okay, that's weird. I saw an article on that game today. Wow.
That
Weird
game was,
serendipity there.
that game was so good.
I never played it,
I am
but-
so sad. It felt well. So here's the deal.
Apparently, it's making a comeback. Is my point.
Because that game skyrocketed, and the developers went, "Oh shit!" The game skyrocketed, and then it fell off a cliff because they couldn't keep up with the suddenly gigantic, way more than they ever thought was possible player base,
Right.
and as people started to fall off, as how these things tend to go. It's the same thing that happened with GTA 5 role playing servers a few years ago.
Right.
Like it was huge boom in popularity thanks to streamers and content creators, and then a huge fall off about 6 months to a year later.
Right.
But yeah,
One of my favorite
just,
games.
Yeah?
Black Ice.
Yeah, that game's
Black
good.
Ice, the little
That game-
cyberpunk thing that we play.
That game's good. I like that game. I like that game a lot. That game's fun. It's just silly fun. And more games need to be like that. And it's like the article I wrote last week about indie developers and how indie developers and AA studios, whatever you want to call them, right? I consider an independent developer and a AA studio to be lumped in the same thing. I know not everybody agrees with me, but I'm talking about specifically the part of the industry that is not the triple or quadruple A
Right.
part of the
The
industry.
quadruple A games.
Right. I am not. I am talking about the people who make games that are outside of that space. Those developers, those publishers have a chance to take the fucking reins and change the tide and change how games are made. I truly believe that. I have friends who are independent game developers that have spent years working on a game and it comes out and they sell 5 copies and they're happy. They sell 20 copies and they're happy. They sell 1,000,000 copies and they're happy. Right? It's not about the money for them, and that's what matters. Right? It's about the love of making a damn game. Make and sell a good quality video game and you will make money.
Oh, there we go.
Somebody will like what you have on offer. I
Yes,
promise
that's
you.
true. And these companies, what happens though is these companies go from we're making these games because we want to make them, and then they make a bunch of money, and then suddenly it becomes about money. I've often wondered if the worst thing that could ever happen to a company is they go public,
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
because you lose control. When
yeah.
you go public, when you make a public offering,
Yeah.
you are giving up control of your business for the most part, because now you are beholden to shareholders.
Absolutely. Abso-friggin-lutely. But
But at the same time, money. You know, you got to make a living. So
gotta be exactly right. But at the same time, like, companies don't necessarily have to go public to be successful.
True.
Right? And there are platforms where you can sell your game where they don't treat you like a fucking pariah just for wanting to list your game on their platform.
And we've talked about this, and other content creators have been talking about this lately, is once again the rise of the indie game.
Oh yeah.
The rise of that smaller platform game.
So I wrote the article about the rise of the rise of indie developer, and like I was saying, I don't know if you had your headset on, if you were hearing what I was saying. I
heard everything.
Okay. But beyond that, then as a follow-up to that article, I wrote one about how it is on the gamers and the way that we buy and consume content to change habits. And not only did I stand up on a soapbox and say, "Yep, I'm guilty of it too." I've given money to EA in the past year. I've given money to I give money to Activision every month. I play World of Warcraft, right? But at the same time, I'm also changing how I think about buying games, right?
Sure.
I bought Roadcraft recently. I bought The Precinct recently.
Is that the no, never mind.
I donated to the Hero's Journey team, right?
Absolutely.
Those kinds of things, like supporting those types of projects. I've bought a bunch of those like simulator games, like the Trading Card Shop Simulator, Crime Scene Cleaner, stuff like that.
Crime Scene Cleaner, I don't get those.
Crime Scene Cleaner is so good, man.
Those are the ones that make me go, what?
Dude, it's
but you know what? If that's your bag and that's what you enjoy, you do you.
It's one of those games where I wasn't gonna buy it, and then I watched Sam play it.
Sure.
And Sam's got a pretty good hold on like what is a good kind of like shut off your brain, but but feel like you're accomplishing something type of game.
Right.
He's got a pretty good hold on which ones of those are good, which ones of those are bad. And he really liked it, so I tried it and I loved it.
Sure.
I made a video on it in 2 days.
Power Washer one.
Oh, dude, that game is so good.
Because I wanted the 40K mod.
Yes.
So where you can power wash 40K vehicles.
Yeah, it's so satisfying. I'm telling you, and it's one of those things where you're like, really? Power washing? What? But then you play it and you're like, oh yeah, this is satisfying. It's the same thing that House Flipper did for me. House Flipper was so fucking satisfying.
Quick subject deviation back to a previous topic.
Yeah.
I'm running the benchmark, the character creator benchmark for Dune.
Oh yeah.
And I'm looking at the frame rate.
Yeah.
On the 2080, it was getting up sort of around 60.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
I'm looking at 180. average currently.
Nice. Nice.
Which again, once you pass 120, it doesn't really
It doesn't
matter.
really matter.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely. So anyway, sorry, just
No,
segue there.
no, that's fine. That's
But
fine. Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome, man.
yeah. Well, in these indie games, how much time have we put into Pal World? Or the ultimate indie game, No Man's Sky.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but these smaller, I say indie. We'll go with smaller company games, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, like I said,
They're just not one of the
when I'm
big
talking
publishers.
about
So
that's what's it. When I'm talking about independent games, right? I'm talking about like again companies that aren't the triple or quadruple A
right, yeah,
space.
yeah. Ubi, you're never living that shit down, by the way.
Yeah, you're never. No, and I will always say it in that voice too, every
Right?
fucking time. It just because it makes it sound as ridiculous as it possibly
We are
can,
the
because it
quadruple
is.
A company.
Yeah. Hey guys, have you played that latest quadruple A game? Ugh.
At last, I've fallen from my least likely plan.
Yeah. Oh man, it's just a mess. Just a mess. I just oof, man. Yeah. Well, and my buddy who worked for Ubisoft for a long time is no longer going to be working for Ubisoft very shortly. It sounds like. Thank God. Yeah. Thank God he got out of there. But yes, it's. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting. Like, especially when we're talking about the other thing you want to talk about tonight with game design, and like how there's a vision for a game when it's first being pitched, right?
Right.
And there's a vision for the game as it's being created. And then there's the reality of what's actually possible.
Right.
Right? So the question is, right? Do you stick to that vision no matter what at the expense of player engagement and fun? Right. Or do you take what the player, what you believe your players, your community, whatever it is, has at heart,
right,
and go that way? And I don't know there's a right or wrong answer here, to be honest with
you. Yeah, I mean, a good example of a game that did stick to the vision trademark is EverQuest, the original.
Yeah, yeah.
As long as Brad McQuaid was there, that game lived and died by the vision.
Yeah.
And it overall, but the problem is, you've got to, your vision has to basically include what is best for the game overall.
Right.
Not a certain percentage of the players.
Right.
And too often we get this where it's like you have, there in many games, especially the games like we've been talking about tonight, which combine different play styles. One or the other play style is always in the minority, and that minority tends to scream louder than the majority.
Yeah.
And so they start to cater to that, and that is, I think, the wrong thing to do. Or worse, you start catering to streamers, content creators.
Yeah.
Don't cater to us. Just don't do it. I mean, we're small, so we don't matter anyway, but don't cater to the big ones either. Don't do it.
No, don't.
I get it. They get paid. They're playing games for a living, so they get bored real fast. That is not the majority of your player base.
Nope.
So when you cater to that, you're going to alienate the majority of your player base because now they do not have the time to invest. You're going to lose that very engagement that you're trying to get the content creators to put your stuff out there in order to get the engagement, but you're going to lose it. Because if I get into a game and I have to spend 40 hours just to get one tiny little thing because I don't have that time to devote, I'm not playing.
Right.
At the end of the day, your average gamer is average for a reason.
Right.
And they just don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
Remember that, and you have to remember too that the quote unquote average gamer doesn't actually exist, right? You've got the average anything doesn't actually exist very much, just because of the nature of statistics. But because you've got all these guys over here who spend all their time playing games, that's all they do. They get paid for it. But then you have the rest of us.
Right.
And these guys over here are a very tiny little percentage at the end of the day. They might sell your game, and if that's all you care about, if all you care about is selling copies, then that's one thing, right? Because I've moved my copies, now I don't care.
Right.
But if you want to engage long term with a player base, and if you cater to that, you won't. You're going to lose them.
Yep. Exactly.
So, and it could be anything. I was looking at something else this week where there's a couple other games who made patches, and I was like, I think you made it a patch at you stuck to your vision at the expense of that player engagement.
Yeah.
So hopefully I'm wrong. I honestly, quite often I hope that I'm wrong.
I do too.
But yeah, we'll see. I think you should always balance what is best for my players versus sticking dogmatically to the vision.
I agree. I agree.
Which I could argue that Dune did. Dune actually did some of that because I think originally they wanted a hardcore PvP game.
Yeah, I do too.
And now they're kind of struggling with trying to reconcile that. But
Yeah.
don't sacrifice the player base for a dogged determination to stick to a vision.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Especially in a game that you want to go long term and
Right.
that sort of thing.
Yup.
It just
It's not.
it won't
Again,
work.
it's just not worth it. It's just if you want your game to have legs, if you want to have retention beyond the first 90 days,
Right.
because let's be real, most of these games, your dedicated fans are going to be there no matter what. They're going to play as long as the game is live, right?
Right.
The way that I look at it, right, is most of the average gamers will give it 2 weeks to a month, right?
Yeah.
People who are invested will give it 90 days.
Right.
After 90 days, if there's nothing to do, players are bored, they've played nothing but your whatever the situation is, right? You've pissed them off by doing something stupid. That is where you start to see the fall off.
Right.
Right? I think that the next, and I especially for Dune Awakening, right? I think the next 90 days to 6 months are pivotal for that game's long-term success. And they've got a lot to live up to. Now, that being said, Conan Exiles is still a game that has a dedicated, passionate following.
You know why? Private servers. Just gonna throw that out there for all you complaining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I was about to say. Because of their private servers and the way they're allowed to modify those private servers.
Now, with that being said, according to the article, there is no modification here. Mods are not supported. Mods are not supported because the Dune estate owners will not let them support mods because they have a very specific vision of how Dune needs to be presented.
Okay, fair play. That's
right.
That's their that's their prerogative. Okay. Whatever. I'm not gonna sit here and
mods won't be supported is because the owners of the Dune estate are like, no.
Yeah. Again,
we are not giving these people free reign to do anything they want with the property.
Fine with that. Honestly, fine. I'm okay with that. I'm genuinely okay with that.
Sure.
But
yeah.
But so I guess to kind of round out the evening, where do you see both and let's do both games we've talked about tonight at length. Where do you see Dune Awakening and The Division 2 being in, say, that 90-day to 6-month window?
I have my doubts if the Division 2 can truly sustain the boost that the DLC's given them.
Okay.
Just kind of from past, what they've done in the past.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they have made some changes that are good. So maybe they've learned some lessons somewhere.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Maybe they haven't. We'll find that. Time will tell on that. With Dune, 90 days, I think you probably see a bit of fall off, but I think that's natural as well. You're going to have a ton of people who try the game, decide it's not for them.
Yeah.
On the token, you're going to have some people that get talked into trying the game and decide, oh wait, this is for me.
Right.
But there's going to be some natural fall off. I do think that there's probably more sustainability there than some people give it credit for. We'll see what happens. A lot of it will be depending on how they react when you open this up finally and you release this into the wild to the player base at large. So that's gonna be a big factor of what happens when they release it and everybody gets their hands on it.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
I'm gonna guarantee you things are gonna break.
Oh,
because
for sure.
when you have, well, let's say you have a testing pool of 100 people, they're gonna find some bugs. You take
Yeah.
that to 1,000 people, they're gonna find some bugs. Just a minute, buddy. But when you open it up and now you've got all of the player base, you're gonna find things that never got found.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. But for me, I would say that the Division 2 has the strongest position it's ever been in. The Division 2 finally has its legs underneath it and really has an opportunity to bridge to the next Division game. I think that's what this DLC was meant to do, right?
Maybe.
Was to bridge into the next Division game, to get people talking about the Division again, to get people interested in the series and the world and the franchise, because they discounted the base game to $3 if you never played it, and they put it on Game Pass on Xbox. Those are two huge investments into the game that Ubisoft and Massive have made, and they're wonderful things, right? So I think that this is a smart way. Somebody in marketing, in Ubisoft marketing, actually won here, right? Because because people are talking about this game, like me, that haven't talked about this game in years. I'm playing this game. I'm logging off of this stream and playing the game. That's what I'm gonna go do tonight with the rest of my evening, right? Like I've got stuff I want to do. I've got things I want to explore, right? And that's a good feeling, right? For them, it has to be a good feeling for them, right? Massive took a pretty big hit last year with Outlaws. As much as I loved that game, I know not everybody loved that game. So to see them come back swinging with the Division 2 with this DLC is a great thing, and I'm happy for them, right? As far as Dune, it's such a fine line for Funcom to walk for me, right? Because right now and this just came in the past couple of weeks, like you said, they've just kind of started to teeter that line a little better than they were between a PvE and PvP and kind of that with that PvE area that they've talked about in the end game. They showed that video, right? All that kind of thing. So they're walking a very fine line for me. And the thing excuse me, the thing that will make or break that for me is what they do when players get their hands on the game that weren't in the betas and start giving them feedback on how they feel the game should behave and play and look and feel and all this and that and the other thing.
Right.
It's do they listen, number one. What do they listen to? And then how do they respond to the community overall? And those three things for me are going to be key in seeing where this game goes in the next 90 days to 6 months. I want this game to succeed because we have put so many hours into the beta. We've given so much feedback. We have done all of these things. And I want this game to do well because I love Dune. When do you see Dune getting an actual proper game made that's got a budget behind it? Not very often, right? When do you see Dune getting the
Spice
recognition?
Wars is a pretty good game.
True, but okay, that's 2 games, Cheeks.
Right.
What I'm saying, like out of Star Trek has 1 billion games,
Well,
Star Wars has 1 billion games.
Dune is hard, man.
Sure.
Sure. That's the thing. That's why it took so long to get. Well, whether you like the '80s movie or not, it took so long to get decent Dune properties.
Sure. But
although if I had to pick, I think the miniseries is still my favorite. But the point is, Dune is hard because of
But so
it's
was
hard because
but to
the
be
surface
fair,
level's easy.
but to be fair, so was Lord of the Rings, and they did it
Well, look how long it took to get that game.
right.
I mean, how long before they got the good Lord of the Rings game? You know,
Forever and a day.
and the rest
But-
of them didn't come until after the Peter Jackson movies. So,
right. But so
you know,
I think that both of those titles have promise, right? And I
the
think
hardest part about Dune is the politics.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The combat shit is easy.
Yep, combat stuff is easy. And like I said, that's where they're walking that fine line for me. And we'll see we'll see where they end up on which side of the line, or if they continue to walk the tightrope. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have the answers, chat. Believe it or not, I'm just a guy on the internet spouting opinions.
Right. And don't get me wrong, I honestly hope they can walk that line.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Exactly. We'll see.
Right?
We'll see. But with that, friends, I think we're going to leave it there for the evening. As always, thank you so much for supporting not only this little show and the stupid things we say here, but everything we do here at Senshudo. It really does mean the world to us. You're going to start seeing some more content from Cheeks around here, at least on the YouTube side of things, once I figure out, and then once I can figure out what is going on with our Twitch access. Hopefully that is a thing we can start having Cheeks on here some more without me, but we'll see.
Oh no.
I know, without the safety net.
Please.
But seriously, y'all, thank you so much for all the support. We love and appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure you check us out over on YouTube, youtube.com/Senshudo, over on TikTok, /Senshudo TV, and on Facebook, it's just search for Senshudo. We're there as well. Cheeks, where can people find you on the internet if they're looking for you?
Well, you can find me on YouTube at Cheeks Miller. Of course, Facebook. You can also look up Half Century Tracks on Bandcamp, another place. That's where you can find my music that I put out. That's not the theme song. But I did. The theme song is mine. I should probably put that out on Bandcamp.
Yes, you should.
It's just weird because it's a little 30-second thing. So, you know. But anyway, you can find me there. You can find the acoustic stuff at Cheeks in Phoenix. Look everywhere there is an internet, you can find it. We're on all the social medias. So.
Wonderful. All right, guys. As always, I love you very much, and we'll speak to you all again as soon as we can.
See everybody later. Peace out.